now we're ready to adjust our handlebar position and adjust our headset and tighten down our stem. First thing we want to do is, as I mentioned earlier before we took the bike apart, I had marked the center position of the handlebar relative to the slot in the top of the stem. So I want to get my handlebar centered, and I want to line up that slot so that the relative height of my levers is the same as it was before I took the bike apart. So we can use the markings on the handlebar to get ourselves centered, right? And then we'll use the marks I made with the Sharpie to line them up with the slot in the stem. Now when I tighten down the stem, I want to make sure that I'm getting an equal gap on the underside of the stem as I am on the top. I'm going to get down here and take a look. Looks nice and even. And I'm just going to start to tighten these faceplate bolts down. And I'm just going to move around, tighten them incrementally, a little bit at a time. Until I hear that torque wrench release, or feel it release. So 5 Newton meters is the torque spec on these. We don't want to go over 5, that's why we're using a torque wrench on these. This is a pretty critical torque spec. We don't want to be guessing. So we're just going to turn all these until that torque wrench releases like that. One more here, I think. That one. That guy's nice and tight. Excellent. Okay, so now our bar's in the right position. It's in exactly the same position it was before we took the bike apart. Now we're going to check our headset and get it adjusted. So I'm going to loosen the stem bolts at the steer and preload my headset. And this is, I'll bet that isn't even 1 Newton meters. We're just drawing the headset together, preloading the bearings. So it doesn't take much. We don't want to over tighten that. Once we've made that adjustment, before we can check the adjustment, we have to tighten the stem bolts down. So I'm going to line up my stem with my front wheel, make sure I've got it nice and straight. Just sighting down the stem and the wheel. And I'm going to tighten this guy down. And then the torque spec on this is 5 Newton meters. And that until we release. Okay. Now we've got to check our headset to make sure it's not loose and to make sure it's not too tight. The way we check to see if it's loose is we just apply the front brake only. So grab a handful of front brake, rock the bike fore and aft, and if you feel any knocking, then the headset's loose. Okay, so in this case, the headset isn't loose, but I also have to make sure that I haven't over-tightened it. And the way I'm going to check to make sure I haven't over-tightened it is I'm just going to lift up the back end of the bike, and I'm going to draw the handlebar over and release it. And if it swings nice and free and smooth, there are no hiccups there, then I know my headset's not over tight. If it was over tight or it was loose, I'd have to loosen these stem bolts at the steer and readjust the compression cap on my headset. Then tighten these again and check it. In this case, got it right the first time.